What's up? It's your boy Kevin to turn on this motherfucking YouTube shit. Wow, what the fuck?
What's up? It's your boy Kevin to turn on YouTube shit. Hey man, we are Lit the team and turn to motherfucking day. So here outside big crip and the gang, so here outside shit, man. Free Palestine, free Congo, Russia, do your thing, and Texas stand the fuck up. Each day is a new day, be a better version of yourself. Never let somebody bring you down, all step back. Never let somebody tell you who you are, also put yourself in a position you don't belong. Let's stay humble, let's do a revolution on this moment. Keep y'all right first. Coming to the Black Hebrew Israelite as a real Jew. We out here. Alright. Boom. Today, it's motherfucking day. So here outside big crip and the gang, so here outside shit, man. Gang, go. Turn up in the gang, nigga. Bruh. This is what I be trying to tell people, man. It's no loyalty, solidness, love in the game, nigga. If somebody can say they self and they get to do what they do, and they put somebody behind, 9 times 10, somebody they would do that. You only gonna have a few solid people who would lay down and take that charge for you. But so Officer Francis, Tracc 100. You know what I'm saying? YNW Melly manager. You know he's the manager of King Von and YNW Melly. Both fucked. So he's snitching. He set. I think he set YNW Melly up, nigga. They trying to say that this gun that went missing and his money on bag, he helped find it. He said that if YNW Melly killed his friends, he wouldn't feel safe around. He wouldn't feel him safe around his family. He been snitching. Then you know YNW Bortlen, he snitched already. I think they trying to dogpile on YNW Melly and get him out the paint and say they asses, cause this shit getting crazy. Let's get into it, man. And it's paperwork out here. Shout out to Holly Rumor. Can we all agree that YNW manager Tracc 100, he set up YNW Melly and King Von?
Okay, we got, and we're not gonna go too much in depth, but it's just basic, life. When you hear, hey, we got DNA that Melly was in the car, I'm going to put it out there. Now, you don't see the defense coming to defend it because their job is to make sure Melly's defended in trial, make sure their client come home, which they're going to do. Melly have the best defensive team. He got 3 of the best lawyers. He built a real great, solid team away from just being...
Do you know who tossed a weapon into the canal? That's what the investigator kept asking in this wild deposition. He pressed again. Did you throw it? Then came another shocker. Apparently, someone told police that Cortland Henry, better known as Tracc, was out in the field searching for that same weapon the next day. What's going on here? The investigator didn't stop there. He asked, why would Jamal Demons, known as YNW Melly, know where the gun was if he wasn't even at the scene during the time of the shootings? And then came another curveball. Why was a storage unit rented the very next day after the murders? That's suspicious timing. To make it even stranger, someone was reportedly hired to paint something right after that day. What needed to be painted so quickly? In the newly released deposition, Melly's manager Hunter K. Tracc Francois refused to answer most of the questions, but documents show that police had already interviewed him before, and during that time, he allegedly admitted going to a field to retrieve a weapon right after the incident. And bank statements, they show he purchased a storage unit the very next day. The deposition also dives into Track's background. He jumped into the rap game at just 16, worked with Kodak Black at 17, helped create the Sniper Gang merch, and later found YNW Melly through Instagram. He even opened a grill shop trying to sell jewelry-style grills to rappers. Now, the crazy part, lawyers say they're going to start showing videos because Track's done a lot of interviews over the years. This whole thing is about to get even messier. Tracc was out here doing interviews like it was a press run, while his artist was literally fighting for his life in court.
Post on his motherfucking profile, nigga.
The deposition shows he sat down and answered questions on camera almost like it was a regular podcast session. When asked if the Melly account was branded under YNW back then, Tracc said, "I don't think so. It was just Melly." He explained that the YNW name came later as Melly grew and wanted something that would make him stand out more. Tracc said, "At first, if you search Melly, everything else popped up, so YNW Melly became his own thing." Then the lawyers brought up one of Melly's most famous interviews with Adam 22 on No Jumper. They even asked Tracc if he had access to Melly's social media early on. Tracc replied that Melly's mom usually had the phone, but sometimes he'd help post things for her. Sounds like a lot of people were managing one account. At one point, lawyer John Phillips awkwardly said he wouldn't repeat certain words written in the transcripts because they could be seen as offensive, adding that he was in a weird spot culturally. The room got tense. Tracc even joked, "I'm offended right now, John. I'm done with the Zoom, but nah, I'm playing. Go ahead." That moment showed just how uncomfortable and chaotic the questioning was getting. Finally, they asked Tracc about the origins of Young N-World. He said it wasn't something he came up with. It was already there from when Melly, Jay Green, Sack Chaser, and Juvie were hanging out back in Gifford as teens. Tracc said he couldn't speak on all the details because he didn't really know that part of the story, but clearly the roots of YNW go way back before fame. So now the questioning shifts again. This time they bring up Vlad TV, calling it just another outlet like No Jumper.
He's singing like a canary, bitch.
If Jamal Demons, better known as YNW Melly, and his crew members Cortland Henry and Sack Chaser called Tracc on June 30th, 2018 when they got pulled over. Tracc instantly invoked his Fifth Amendment right. He didn't want to say anything. The lawyer tried to clarify. "I'm not talking about the murders. I'm talking about June 30th. But Tracc stood firm. "I'm still not talking." Things got tense. Then they brought up Mariah Hamilton, Melly's ex-girlfriend, saying that according to the police report, she was with Melly, Withers Williams, and Henry that day. When asked if that refreshed his memory, Tracc again refused to answer. Next, the questioning got real specific. They asked about a Gucci bag Melly supposedly had with him the night everything went down. The lawyer kept pressing. "Are you familiar with that Gucci bag? Do you know what he usually kept in it? Did you ever have it in your possession?" Tracc didn't budge. The attorney was clearly trying to suggest that the same bag Melly had that night might have been the same one seen before in other incidents where weapons were found. They even brought up a red backpack, saying it allegedly contained several items, including accessories linked to firearms. The lawyer asked over and over, "Do you know what was inside the bag? Did you buy any of those items for him? Did anyone else?" Tracc stayed silent, constantly asserting his right not to answer. The tension in the deposition was unreal. Every time the lawyer pushed for details about weapons, bags, or purchases, Tracc shut it down immediately. This back and forth revealed how deep the investigators are digging, trying to connect every small detail to that night. The lawyer kept digging into the money side of things next, and it got wild. They asked if the same bag also had $10,000 in cash inside. When Tracc was questioned on how Melly usually got paid, he said the label, 300 Entertainment, would wire the money, and then he would handle distributing it to Melly. Basically, the money hit the manager's account first, and then got sent out from there. Sounds risky, right? Tracc explained that as a manager, that's how it usually works. The label sends funds to the manager, who then disperses it to the artist. But even the interviewer couldn't ignore how shady that can get. They said there are tons of managers out there who skim from their artists without them even noticing. If all the money goes into one person's account and the artist just trusts them blindly, that's a perfect setup.
He was stealing from
artists really gotta check their financial records. When asked what his commission was in 2018, Tracc said 15%. The lawyer admitted that's actually pretty fair since most managers take between 10% and 20%. But then they mentioned some other cases where managers were taking half their artist's money, 50%. That's robbery level management right there. Then came the question about Melly's record deal advance. The lawyer asked, "Was it $400,000? Tracc said, "I wouldn't know, John." That response left everyone confused. How do you not know the number when you're supposed to be taking a 15% cut of it? The lawyer pushed back, saying, "Even if it was years ago, you'd remember a chunk of money that big." They also questioned Tracc about large amounts of cash, like bundles of $100 bills Melly was once caught with. The lawyer asked if he ever got that money back, or even the items seized during the same time. And finally, he asked one last thing. "Is Jamel Demons, YNW Melly, still your client today?" The silence after that said it all. When the lawyer asked if he's still managing YNW Melly, Tracc said, "I'd have to talk to my counsel about that." Then confirmed he was invoking his right to stay silent until speaking with his lawyer. He wouldn't even say if he's technically still Melly's manager. That's strange. They then asked if Melly had any ownership in Remain Solid, which appears to be 100K Tracc's own management company. Tracc refused to answer again. The lawyer pressed, "Does Jamie King have ownership? Does Cortland Henry?" But all he got was more silence. So now it's unclear whether any of Melly's team had a real share in that company. Things got more confusing when they clarified that Remain Solid is actually Tracc's record label. The question switched to what services he provided to his artists, and once again, he wouldn't answer. That's when the lawyer hit him with a tough one. "Why are you more willing to talk to podcasters than the lawyers?" Ouch. They were clearly calling him out for doing interviews instead of cooperating under oath. Then came questions about Sack Chaser. They asked if he was authentic, had a strong work ethic, or real drive. Tracc still refused to answer even basic personal questions about him. It's like he didn't want to touch anything involving Melly's old crew. The lawyer moved on to ownership rights, asking who really owns the YNW logo and name. Tracc said he didn't know and asserted his rights again. They even asked if he or anyone else bought ownership shares of YNW, but he stayed silent there too. Here's where it gets really suspicious. The state believes that Sack Chaser and Juvie may have had a verbal agreement with Melly about owning part of YNW, but when the official paperwork was filed, their names allegedly weren't included. That's where this whole ownership dispute theory comes in. Some people believe that behind the scenes, money and credit got mixed up and the paperwork ended up cutting certain people out. The questioning kept getting more personal, and Tracc started to lose his patience. They brought up a name, Cortez Cash-Motivated Ash, someone who was reportedly part of Melly's early circle. When asked if he remembered who that was, Tracc flat out said no. The lawyer then pushed further, asking if he was aware that Cortez and Jamie King, someone close to Melly, were involved romantically. Tracc denied even knowing who Cortez was. The lawyer then revealed something interesting. Documents show that Rashad Ash, Cortez's real name, filed for an LLC under YNW back in March 2018. When asked if Tracc knew about it, he said no. They followed up by asking if he knew who the officers or founders listed under that company were. Again, he said no. They also asked why Melly was seen wearing a cash-motivated chain around that same time. Tracc claimed he wasn't sure, saying Melly had a lot of different jewelry. But fans remember that infamous no-jumper interview where Melly was asked about the cash-motivated piece and looked visibly uncomfortable, replying, "I don't want to talk about it." Not long after that, the chain disappeared and people started speculating. From what's been gathered, Melly and Cortez Ash reportedly had a falling out, possibly connected to some behind-the-scenes drama. Around the same time, Melly flew out to Los Angeles for meetings with major labels like Atlantic Records and APG, even though he was already signed with 300 Entertainment. When asked if Tracc helped Melly or Jamie King with the YNW trademark paperwork, he said no. He claimed he had no knowledge of who actually filed for ownership. The lawyer kept pressing about Cortez, but Tracc was done. He said, "I don't know that guy, and if you ask me 1,000 times, I'll say the same thing 1,000 times. Toward the end, Tracc added that Cortez once told him he was involved with Jamie King, and that this situation reportedly caused tension within Melly's camp. That might explain why Melly stopped wearing the cash-motivated chain and started distancing himself from that crew. The energy between them had clearly turned sour. The deposition kept heating up, and now the lawyer brought up an old video clip where Tracc said, "Fam, I'm YNW." The attorney asked him directly, "Why did you say that?" Tracc replied, "You'd have to play the whole clip, sir. I don't understand the context from that snippet." Then the lawyer asked why Jay Green supposedly wasn't allowed to speak on YNW, and Tracc explained, because he wasn't part of it anymore. He wasn't friends with the people running things, so why talk about something you're not involved in? The tone was sharp. It was clear he was losing patience. Then things got even more layered. The lawyer asked if Sack Chaser and Juvie were still alive at the time this clip was filmed. Tracc didn't answer directly, just asserted his rights again. The questioning moved to a more controversial topic, lawyer payments. In one clip, Tracc referenced paying lawyers, and the attorney asked, "Whose lawyers were you paying?" Tracc confirmed Jamal Demon's, YNW Melly's attorneys, but when asked if he paid for anyone else's, he went silent again. The lawyer started listing names: Adrian Davis, DeAntavis Withers, Mariah Hamilton, Felicia Holmes, Cortland Henry, Frederick Griffins. Each time, Tracc refused to confirm or deny anything. The lawyer was clearly trying to prove that someone might have been paying legal fees for multiple people tied to the case, and Tracc wasn't giving them anything. Then came business questions. Does 100K management own an armored vehicle? Tracc stayed quiet. Who runs the Free Melly merch and website? Do you operate FreeYNW.com? Again, no clear answer. They even asked if he was employed under Young New Wave Apparel and what that company really was. Tracc only said enough to confirm he worked with Melly's brand, but wouldn't say who owned what. The most serious question hit near the end. Do the families of the victims, like Christopher Thomas Jr., Juvie, or Anthony Williams, sack chaser, receive any money from the merch sales? Tracc wouldn't answer that either. By this point, you could feel his frustration boiling over. He finally snapped, saying, "It's not about the case," trying to shut the whole conversation down. But the lawyers clearly thought otherwise, and the tension in that room was unreal. Tracc snapped back, saying, "This isn't even about the case. I'm just getting messages from work." The room got tense as the lawyer tried to keep things on track. Attorney John Phillips pushed forward, explaining why the questions mattered. He said the use of YNW trademarks, funds, and merch sales could tie directly into what happened around the time of the tragic deaths of Christopher Thomas Jr., Juvie, and Anthony Williams, sack chaser. Phillips stated that money from YNW-related sales may have gone into Hunter K. Tracc's management accounts, which could be part of what they called a civil conspiracy claim, basically suggesting there might have been hidden transactions or shady financial handling after the incident. He said, "We're allowed to ask these questions about the merch company because it could show how funds were moved or controlled." That's a serious claim. The lawyer then asked directly if the proceeds from YNW Apparel were deposited into 100K management's account. Tracc didn't give a straight answer. When Phillips brought up that Mr. Williams, sack chaser, was reportedly listed as CEO of YNW at the time, Tracc laughed. Phillips shot back, "What's funny about that?" Tracc replied, "You went from one question to something else. I didn't even answer the first one." The back and forth felt more like a heated argument than a deposition. Phillips kept pressing, asking if Mr. Thomas Juvie had also been listed as CEO during that time. Again, Tracc invoked his right not to answer. Then came the record label confusion. Phillips brought up the meetings Melly had in Los Angeles with Atlantic Records and APG. According to reports, Melly was already signed to 300 Entertainment in New York, but still flew out to LA to work with Atlantic. The label allegedly paid for studio time, flights, and resources, thinking he was an unsigned artist. In the end, it seems that entire trip caused some serious label drama. Atlantic reportedly realized Melly was already under contract with 300, meaning he couldn't even keep the music he recorded in those sessions. It was a mess that showed just how tangled Melly's business situation really was. Multiple labels, multiple managers, and way too many secrets. The questioning took another wild turn. The lawyer asked if YNW Melly met with any known gang members while in Los Angeles. Tracc said yes, but only for work, explaining that every meeting or video shoot Melly did in LA was business related, not personal. Then, an uncomfortable rumor came up, something Adam 22 once mentioned about an alleged incident at a record label office. The lawyer asked if it was true, and Tracc shut it down instantly. "I have no idea what Adam's talking about. If that happened, it had nothing to do with me." When asked if it would have embarrassed the YNW brand, he said he didn't recall any such situation. The focus then shifted to payments made to one of the victims' families. The attorney claimed Tracc once said that the record label, not him, handled the payments, but now they wanted details, how much was paid, who approved it, and why. Tracc refused to answer most of it, and at one point the lawyer even suggested that Tracc called him personally to drop a case because payments were being made to the victim's family. He then asked straight up, "Are you aware you're being investigated for witness tampering?" Tracc immediately asserted his right not to respond. They even mentioned Kevin Liles, the CEO of 300 Entertainment, asking if he approved those payments. The implication? That the label might have stepped in financially after the tragedy to ease tensions or settle matters quietly. The questioning wrapped with talk about Melly telling a family, "My lawyer and label told me not to speak, but I'm taking care of everything. You'll be good for life." Lawyers pressed Tracc. What did Melly mean by that? Did he or 100K management actually do anything to make things right? By the end, Tracc was visibly frustrated, dodging more financial questions and mumbling that he needed food. The tension was thick, and the unanswered questions made it all sound even more suspicious. The questioning got even more intense. Lawyers asked Hunter 100K Tracc Francois why he made payments to Jamie King, Melly's mom. Tracc said any money sent to her was for Melly's benefit, not personal. Then came a tricky topic, his decision to hand over a phone to prosecutors early in the case. Some people online called that snitching, and Tracc had even spoken about it in interviews, saying he didn't see it that way. When asked if Jamie King ever accused him of cooperating with prosecutors, he said no. The lawyer pushed harder, asking if he had Melly's phone at the time of the shooting, or if he ever handled any weapons linked to the case. Tracc immediately invoked his right not to answer. The attorney kept firing off questions about money, weapons, and evidence. Did you pay the victims' families? Did you help recover or hide a weapon? Tracc stayed silent every time. He refused to confirm or deny anything. Then the lawyer brought up a clip where Tracc said there was no evidence against Melly. The attorney called it unbelievable, asking why he'd make that claim publicly while refusing to testify in court. Tracc laughed, and the lawyer snapped back, "It's not funny." The most shocking part came when they quoted one of Tracc's earlier police statements from May 2019, where he allegedly said, "I don't see Melly as a killer. If he could do that to Sack and Juvie, then he could do that to me or my wife. But I just don't believe that's who he is." That single quote summed up how divided the people closest to Melly really are, caught between loyalty, fear, and disbelief. This whole deposition paints a picture of someone who knows a lot, but refuses to say anything. The lawyer pressed Tracc about a past police statement where he supposedly said, "If Melly could hurt Sack and Juvie, then he could hurt me and my wife." They asked if he was afraid for his safety. Tracc refused to answer. They even questioned whether Melly had ever threatened him or his wife. Again, silence.
This nigga is a
When
rat.
asked if Juvie, who Tracc once called like a little brother, deserved justice, he still invoked his rights. That moment stunned everyone. He wouldn't even speak on justice for a close friend. Then the questioning moved to money. The lawyer asked if Sack Chaser was owed $200,000 by Melly. Tracc wouldn't confirm, but investigators believe there was talk about a deal where Melly planned to sign Sack and Juvie under 100K management or remain solid records. The theory suggested that a dispute over money might have fueled tension in the crew, but many find that hard to believe, considering Melly was already set to make millions at that point. Killing friends over business money just didn't make sense. Finally, they brought up the field incident, the trip where Tracc allegedly helped recover a weapon after the murders. The lawyer asked who came up with the idea, who drove, and if he knew the weapon was linked to a double homicide. Each time, Tracc asserted his right to remain silent. Every answer he refused only made things sound more suspicious, leaving people wondering what really happened that night and what secrets Tracc might still be keeping. The questioning turned straight to the night after the murders, and it got dark fast. The lawyer asked who found the weapon in the field and how many people went back there the next morning.
And you can look this up. This is real shit.
Phones pinged
They got
at
the
same
paperwork
location
out here.
where
The
they believed
paperwork
the
is
weapon
out
was
here.
dumped.
He did
They
all
pressed
this shit
Tracc.
they saying.
Did you see anyone throw a weapon into the
They had a
canal?
deposition.
Did you throw it? He refused to answer. The attorney brought up
They had a
statements saying someone
deposition. This is
allegedly
everything he
handled a
been
bloody
saying in the
firearm,
deposition.
but Tracc kept invoking his right to remain silent.
is crazy.
Then came a string of tense questions. Who put the weapon in the car? Who took it out? Why didn't they hand it to police? And where it is now? No answers, just more silence. The lawyer even joked mid-deposition, breaking the tension by pointing out someone named Raina, trying to lighten the mood, but Tracc wasn't playing along. They then asked what he was doing helping Jamie King that same day, and if she had any role in what happened. Tracc immediately shut it down with another assertion. Finally, the lawyer confronted him with a shocking claim that Tracc told police Cortland Henry went to the field looking for the weapon, and that Melly somehow knew where it was, even though he supposedly wasn't at the scene. That led to the biggest question yet. Why would anyone dispose of the gun if they weren't involved? Tracc didn't respond. The silence in that room said more than words ever could, and the mystery around that missing weapon only got deeper. The questioning hit a boiling point. The lawyer asked if Tracc had told police that people went back to the field looking for a weapon, and some started wondering if that was snitching. Tracc refused to clarify. Then came the vehicle questions. Did he rent the Jeep used the night of the murders? Was he aware of the front-end damage that reportedly came from swerving off the road and hitting barrels? Investigators claim that's when the shooting took place. That small detail shocked everyone. It was the first time most people had even heard about barrels being damaged near the scene. The lawyer asked if Tracc had gone on multiple podcasts discussing the case. Tracc stayed quiet again, even as they asked about the .40 caliber shell casing found inside his rental vehicle. Who fired it? Who picked it up? Did you help remove them? Every question met with silence. Next, they brought up something emotional. Sack Chaser's fear before the murders. The lawyer said Sack called his mom just days before, saying he was scared and wanted to move away. They asked if Tracc, as Melly's manager, ever offered protection or reported the threats. He didn't answer. Finally, they threw in street rumors, claims that Juvie was hurt because he refused to leave Sack's side, and that there was talk about relationship drama involving Melly's girlfriend. Tracc denied ever hearing any of it. At this point, the deposition was pure chaos. Questions about guns, fear, loyalty, and money all swirling together, with Tracc refusing to confirm a single thing. The silence around these answers made the mystery feel even darker. The questioning got even messier. The lawyer asked if Tracc knew about personal rumors involving Juvie, Sack Chaser, or Mariah Hamilton, but he denied everything, said he'd never heard of any of it. Then they showed him a photo of a weapon, asking if it looked like the one found in the field after the murders. Tracc refused to answer. The attorney followed up, claiming that Melly had already earned around $750,000 from his deals by that time, and asked if he and Melly had any plan to profit from what happened. Tracc immediately invoked his rights again. The big reveal came next. They said Tracc admitted to being at the field after the murders, even though he denied touching the weapon himself. The lawyer pointed out that his statements basically confirmed he was there when it was found, which raised even more suspicion. They pressed further. Was his home searched? Did police find a storage unit key? And yes, apparently investigators did search a storage unit afterward. They claimed items had been moved out of the YNW house right after the murders, and a storage shed was rented that same day. The lawyer asked, why would anyone rent a storage unit right after something like that happened? And even the courtroom reacted. It sounded bad. Finally, they mentioned a woman named Ajaz Hassan Ali connected to something labeled as paint jobs. The lawyer asked, what exactly needed to be painted the day after those murders? No answers, just more silence. Every new detail made the situation sound more suspicious than before. The lawyer wasn't holding back anymore. He pointed out that right after the murders, a storage unit was rented, cash was withdrawn, and something was painted, all within 24 hours. He called those details major red flags. They questioned why Melly's phone went missing if he supposedly wasn't even at the scene, and why his manager needed a storage shed that same day. The timing looked bad, like something was being hidden. Then came the most explosive part, the autopsy evidence. The lawyer asked if Tracc really believed a magic bullet somehow curved inside the car, since the angles of the shots didn't match a drive-by. Investigators said the gunfire came from inside the vehicle, not outside. He asked directly, were you involved in shooting Mr. Thomas or Mr. Williams? Tracc refused to answer. When asked about the gunpowder found on Mr. Thomas's cheek, the lawyer explained it suggested the shot was fired from only about 8 inches away, meaning the shooter was right next to him. Then they showed a photo of Juvie's hand, explaining how he likely put his hands up to shield himself from a close-range shot. The courtroom went silent. Everything in that moment painted a chilling picture. The shots came from inside the car. The story about a drive-by didn't match, and the people who could clear it up were all refusing to speak. The tension was unreal, and every unanswered question made the truth look even darker. The lawyer continued grilling Tracc with photos and evidence, showing how the car's damage and blood patterns didn't match a typical drive-by. Investigators believe the shots came from inside the vehicle, not outside. When asked if he knew how the car got hit on the passenger side, Tracc said, "No, I do not." They showed him photos suggesting someone was sitting in the back left seat when the shots were fired. Tracc looked uneasy, but stayed silent. The lawyer then pointed out that Melly tried calling his mom around 3:40 a.m. just after the time of the murders, and asked if Tracc knew what those calls were about. He didn't answer. Messages were also mentioned, texts between Melly, Sack Chaser, and others. Investigators said Sack had been asking Melly for small amounts of money before the murders because he was struggling financially. Tracc said he had no idea about those messages. Then the lawyer brought up disturbing rumors about conflicts between the crew, but Tracc firmly denied hearing anything like that. When asked if he knew Melly had gotten rid of his phone that same night, he once again said, "No, I don't know." The courtroom felt heavy. The timeline, texts, and physical evidence all seemed to tell a story that no one wanted to say out loud. But Tracc's silence spoke volumes, and it left everyone wondering what he really knew about that night, and who was truly inside that car when it all went down. The final moments of the deposition were tense. The lawyer accused Mariah Hamilton and her mother of trying to get $40,000 in a car from Melly's team, calling it an extortion attempt. Tracc denied knowing anything about that, but then the lawyer revealed text messages allegedly showing Mariah's mom saying they did receive the money and the car. The room went silent. This was a bombshell claim. Then came another twist. The lawyer read out a message from Ms. Holmes dated March 1st, 2021, where she said she was ready to testify about what Melly supposedly told her at a friend's house, hinting she had inside knowledge of that night. Tracc said he wasn't aware of those messages either. Things got serious when the lawyer reminded Tracc that his silence, every time he pled the fifth, could be shown to a jury in a civil case, and that they'd be asking for millions in damages. Tracc simply said he'd need to speak with his attorney. The lawyer pushed back, warning that if the court rules against him, they could go after his assets, his income, cars, or property to satisfy the judgment. Tracc kept asserting his rights and refused to answer. The deposition ended in total chaos. Accusations of hush money, new testimony threats, and the looming possibility of a massive civil lawsuit. And that wraps it up. What do you think about all these wild revelations and unanswered questions? Drop your thoughts below, hit subscribe, like, share, and comment, because this story is far from over.
Shout out to Rap Daily. Nigga. So where was all this shit? Where was all this shit when YNW Melly went to court the first time? You get what I'm saying?
They ask him whatever they want.
They restored the court.
Nothing he
The court.
says
Then they come with all this new information.
Nothing.
They asked
this is what they call a
Tracc.
snitch session.
YNW Bortlen just
What
dropped
the hell?
shocking details that would send his best friend Melly to prison
Where they get all this information
after 6 years of
from?
loyalty.
They didn't get all this information in the first
What
trial.
he revealed about that deadly
What the
night will
fuck?
destroy everything you thought you knew about this case. The shocking revelation that just destroyed YNW Melly. This is some real street politics that is shaking the entire
Damn, this shit's getting wild. Where they get all this information from? They didn't have it in the first trial. If they would have voted him guilty,
controversial decision in
they
recent
would never have this
a
information.
decision that could seal YNW Melly's
The
fate
fuck?
forever. We're talking about a plea deal so explosive, so game-changing, that it's got the streets questioning what happens when keeping it real goes completely wrong. Here's the tea that's got everyone heated. YNW Bortlen just accepted a plea deal literally one day before his murder trial was supposed to begin, completely dodging 2 first-degree murder charges that could have buried him under the jail for life. But this wasn't just about saving his own skin. This move has implications that could destroy his former best friend, YNW Melly's chances of ever seeing freedom again. The streets are calling it the
Well, after
ultimate
everything,
betrayal.
like, man, they try to get me out the
Calling
paint.
it strategic, but what everyone agrees
You know what I'm
on
saying?
is Bortlen just changed the
I
entire
think
game.
YNW
Melly's
Bortlen
defense
mad because
team
they
is probably having nightmares
YNW manager trying to
They
get them
ask
out
him
the paint.
whatever they want, right? And nothing he says can be held against him in that proffer. Nothing. And this is what they call
Stop
a
self-snitching.
snitch session. He's taking a deal where he's getting, 10 years in, 6 years on probation. He's already got 7 in.
Let me break down exactly what went down in that Broward County courtroom. Cortland Henry, that's Bortlen's government name, walked into that building facing some of the most serious charges you can catch in the state of Florida. We're talking about 2 counts of first-degree murder, 2 counts of accessory after the fact to murder in the first degree, witness tampering in a capital felony, directing criminal gang activities, conspiracy to commit tampering, and unlawful use of a 2-way communication device. In hood terms, that's what we call football numbers, the type of time that'll have you watching your great-grandkids grow up through prison glass. But instead of rolling the dice with a jury trial, Bortlen pleaded no contest to witness tampering, 2 counts of accessory to a capital felony, and unlawful use of a 2-way communication device. The prosecution, in exchange for this plea, agreed to drop those murder charges that would have had him spending eternity behind bars. The sentence he caught, 10 years in prison followed by 6 years of probation. Now here's where it gets interesting. With credit for time already served since his 2019 arrest, Bortlen's looking at a potential release date of January 6, 2032. That's less than 7 years from now instead of dying in a Florida state penitentiary. In street mathematics, that's the difference between having a life and becoming a statistic.
That nigga said, hey, I'm not finna go down, I'm just a driver.
Absolutely buzzing with controversy. As part of this deal, Bortlen is required to provide what's called a proffer, basically a detailed statement about everything he knows regarding the case. Now, his legal team keeps insisting that there's no expectation for him to cooperate against Melly, but folks who understand how the system really operates ain't buying that explanation.
And also by the nature of the pleas that he's taken, accessory after the fact of murder, it helps the state. Why the fuck would the state drop 5 life sentences to just be like, oh, we just want this guy to go home? Come on.
This is where things get
that's
really
crazy.
deep, and why this plea deal
Hell
is
no, that
being
nigga
called a
ratting.
potential death blow to Melly's defense. For over 6 years, the
They
prosecution
want that. They don't give a fuck about this bitch ass nigga. They want the big fish.
Bortlen conspired to
They
murder
want YNW Melly.
Christopher YNW.
Fuck the other nigga.
Thomas
Fuck
Jr.
Bortlen nigga. They don't give a fuck about that weak ass
Sack
nigga.
Chaser Williams back in October 2018.
That nigga ain't the prize,
According to
nigga.
the
They
state's
want
narrative,
YNW Melly.
allegedly shot the victims inside a Jeep that Bortlen was driving. Then they both worked together to stage the scene to look like a drive-by shooting, driving around with the bodies before eventually heading to the hospital. Now, with Bortlen's plea deal essentially admitting he played a role as an accessory after the fact, the prosecution has something they didn't have before. Validation that their
So
entire
that's how I say, oh, this is over Munyon.
murder followed by a cover-up is
The
legit.
other people
This
want
isn't some
part
random
of the
drive-by
label
shooting like
Munyon.
Bortlen originally told police.
That
when he showed
YNW
up
Melly
at
was
the
getting, but
hospital with
YNW Melly,
2
they said
dead bodies.
YNW Melly was like,
Timing
hell
of
no,
this
I want
decision
all
was
of it I can
calculated
get.
to perfection.
Bortlen accepted this deal exactly 24 hours before jury selection was scheduled to begin for his trial.
And nobody knew these niggas. Everybody knew YNW Melly.
This was a strategic chess play made by someone who could read the writing on the wall and understood that his options had been reduced.
And then stole this nigga YNW Melly out, the manager and his co-defendant.
Absolutely explosive for Melly's case. Bortlen's attorney has emphasized that the no contest plea doesn't constitute an admission of guilt. But anybody who's been around the legal system knows that when you're facing life sentences and you take a deal that requires providing detailed information to prosecutors, the technical legal definitions don't matter to the streets or to the other side of the courtroom. The streets are calling this a Guna plea, referencing Sergio Kitchen's controversial decision in the YSL case, where he took a similar deal that had the hip-hop community questioning his credibility and loyalty. It's the type of move that saves your physical freedom, but potentially destroys your reputation in the culture forever.
You take a plea, you saying we did it. Even though you saying no contest. You snitching.
Even if he doesn't have to say, he doesn't have to testify, make a statement, that's still snitching.
To understand the full scope of what this means, we need to dive into the background of how we got here. The YNW Collective originated in Gifford, Florida, where these young men grew up together in the same neighborhoods, sharing the same dreams and struggles that come with trying to make it out of poverty through music. Jamel Demons, YNW Melly, Christopher Thomas Jr., YNW Juvie, Anthony Williams, YNW Sack Chaser, and Cortland Henry, YNW Bortlen, were childhood friends who built their careers as a unit. The incident that changed everything happened on October 26, 2018, after the crew left a recording studio in Fort Lauderdale. According to prosecutors, it started as a routine night of making music ended with two young men dead and their former friends facing murder charges that could result in the death penalty. But Bortlen's plea deal doesn't just affect his own situation, it potentially destroys one of Melly's key defense strategies. From the beginning, Melly's legal team has maintained that their client wasn't involved in the murders and that the prosecution's theory was fundamentally flawed. Part of their strategy involved potentially pointing fingers at other possible suspects, which could have included Bortlen himself. Now that option has been completely eliminated. With Bortlen acknowledging his role as an accessory after the fact, the prosecution can point to his plea as evidence that their version of events is accurate. This gives them something they've been lacking, corroboration of their theory from someone who was actually present during the alleged crime. The street's explosive reaction. The moment news of Bortlen's plea deal hit social media, the hip-hop community erupted into an absolute frenzy of debates, accusations, and heated discussions about what loyalty really means when you're staring down the barrel of multiple life sentences. The reaction was swift, brutal, and unforgiving, exactly what you'd expect when someone in the culture makes a move that's perceived as violating the sacred code of the streets. Within hours of the announcement, Bortlen's name was trending across every platform, with users drawing comparisons to every other high-profile case where rappers chose cooperation over solidarity. The phrase "Gunna plea" started dominating timelines, connecting his situation to Sergio Kitchen's controversial decision in the Young Thug YSL case that left the streets divided and questioning what keeping it real actually means in 2025. But the most significant reactions came from the people who matter most in this situation, the families who have been waiting over 6 years for justice. Anthony Morton, representing the Thomas family, expressed that the family liked the deal, stating, "At the end of the day, Mr. Henry knows what happened. He was in the car, but he wasn't the shooter." For these families, any step toward truth and accountability represents progress in a case that has dragged on for far too long. However, in the streets and throughout hip-hop culture, the response was entirely different. Being labeled a snitch in this community isn't just about losing credibility. It's about social death, career suicide, and potentially putting your physical safety at risk. It's a reputation that follows you forever, affecting everything from your ability.
Bortlen ain't gonna be able to come back from this. He might as well go into like private, like suicide watch.
If you did it, take the plea. If you didn't do it, trial.
The controversy intensified when people started dissecting the specific requirements of
this motherfucker might as well go to Alaska, bitch, or fucking Antarctica at this point.
It was the
nigga ain't better make it in the rap game. Nigga, he might get, as soon as he get out, they might take his ass out.
Essentially a spill everything you know session.
Y'all ever see them videos when niggas get released from jail and as soon as they get down the street, they get slammed down?
A proffer is usually a session between the defendant and the U.S. attorneys or the district attorneys in this case. And what usually happens is that they call it, and this is the popular name for it, Queen for a Day. Usually a part of your plea deal. They want you, well, not at all, like, well, plea is different, but in a proffer session, they're going to allow you
snitching.
to tell them everything.
The
You're
psychological
snitching.
aspect of the
Basically,
situation
proper is a
cannot be
snitching, nigga.
understated. The
But it's
criminal
like they
justice
can't really
system
use
is
it in
designed
court.
to
You know what I'm
break
saying?
people down
But they know that you
mentally,
snitched.
creating scenarios
That's
where
what Gunna did.
defendants feel forced
He
to
said he
choose
snitched.
loyalty to
But they
the
couldn't
group
use
and
that in
loyalty to
court.
themselves
You know what I'm
and
saying?
families. Bortlen
It was
has
just a
been locked up
proper
since
so he can get
2019.
free.
Over 6
They don't
years
use
of
that
his
in
young
court
life
for
spent in
people.
county jail,
But the
missing
court
birthdays,
still know.
funerals,
You know what I'm
family
saying? So
gatherings,
if he
and
took a
every
proper
milestone that
plea deal
defined
like
their
that,
normal existence.
he
But the
cleared
streets weren't
himself.
interested in
But they can't
psychological
use that in
explanations
court.
or
But it's
discussions
still
about
like, you
systemic
feel me?
pressure. They were focused on one fundamental question: is Bortlen a snitch, or is he just a young man who made the best decision he could under impossible circumstances? The
I
comparisons
mean,
to
he a
other
snitch.
controversial
Cause he, what the
cooperation
nigga? I
cases
understand the
became
nigga wasn't like
relentless.
a part of the
People
shit.
brought up Tekashi 6ix9ine full
It's a snitch.
cooperation with federal prosecutors, where he testified against former associates and helped secure multiple convictions. They mentioned Gunna's YSL plea deal, which many
Gunna is
consider
most, I
cooperation,
mean, Gunna,
even though he never
6ix9ine,
testified in court. Some
you rap.
reach back to older cases involving rappers who chose
The big
information over
rap.
incarceration, creating a historical context that painted Bortlen's decision as part of a troubling pattern.
And the
What
crazy
made
part is,
Bortlen's
Bortlen ain't
situation
spent
particularly
as much
complex
time as
was how his team attempted
YNW
to
Melly
control
been
the
in jail.
narrative after the news broke. Reports emerged that Bortlen had addressed the rumors in a freestyle shared on social media, denying that he took a deal that would harm his associates. In the track, he reportedly stated, "What the fuck I look like taking a deal that hurt my N*******S, free me and Melly." But even with these damage control efforts, the court of public opinion had already rendered its verdict. In hip-hop culture, perception often becomes reality faster than facts can be established.
They trying to wash their hands away with this shit. They said, fuck it, get YNW Melly out this way, and let us else make it.
They said the boys and the other boys been in that since what? Valentine's Day 2019, 2018 or something like that. Went to trial, you know what I'm saying, a hung jury or whatever they had going on. Really, in reality, hung jury or whatever, they couldn't come up with a decision. Shorty them had some leeway.
The cultural implications of this case extend far beyond just these specific individuals. This represents a pattern that's becoming increasingly common in high-profile cases involving young black artists from the hood. From RICO prosecutions to gang allegations, the system appears designed to create situations where cooperation becomes the most rational choice, even when it violates fundamental principles of street loyalty and cultural identity. The controversy deepened when speculation began about what Bortlen's proffer might actually contain. While the specific details weren't made public, people familiar with the case started suggesting that it would likely include a comprehensive account of October 26, 2018, the night Christopher Thomas Jr. and Anthony Williams lost their lives. This information could potentially demolish whatever defense strategy Melly's team had been developing over the past 6 years. The timing of this development in relation to Melly's own legal proceedings made everything even more dramatic and consequential. Melly's retrial has been postponed multiple times and is now scheduled for January 2027. This extended timeline gives the prosecution years to incorporate whatever information they obtain from Bortlen's proffer into their overall strategy and case presentation. The personal betrayal aspect of this situation adds layers of complexity that can't be ignored or minimized. These weren't just random co-defendants who happened to be charged together in the same case. Melly and Bortlen were genuine friends, part of the same crew, practically family members who had grown up together and built their dreams side by side. The YNW Collective represented more than just a music group. It was a brotherhood forged in the struggles of Gifford, Florida, where young black men often faced limited options for escaping poverty and violence. They had shared everything: successes, failures, studio sessions, performances, and the gradual climb toward potential fame and fortune. Now that bond has been irreparably shattered by legal pressures and life or death decisions, the cultural debate surrounding this case reflects broader tensions within hip-hop about authenticity, loyalty, and survival. On one side, you have purists who argue that street code should never be violated, regardless of the personal consequences. On the other side, you have pragmatists who understand that the system is designed to force these impossible choices, and that survival sometimes requires difficult decisions. Game over for Melly? Now that the initial shock has settled and the legal implications are becoming clear, it's time to address the elephant in the room. Bortlen's plea deal might have just sealed YNW Melly's fate in the most devastating way possible. This isn't just about one man's decision to save himself. This is about a strategic
cause nigga took a plea deal, nigga, he kind of said that you was part of the shit. It actually happened.
Ripple effects throughout the entire culture. The legal ramifications of Bortlen's plea deal are absolutely catastrophic for Melly's defense strategy. By pleading no contest to excessive,
I wonder why they're gonna do a lot of Texan tests, You know what I'm saying? But I feel like they said that it's not. I don't think that's like, you know what I'm saying. People can lie and steal you, right? But I don't understand.
provides the state with exactly what they needed to strengthen
You know
their
what I'm saying?
case
You put a lot of
expeditiously.
text
Let me break
on
down
my
exactly
dumb
why
ass
this
niggas. You know what I
changes
mean? Like,
everything
you feel me?
for
Like,
Melly's legal situation. From the
a lot of
very
shit
beginning, Melly's defense team has been maintaining that their client wasn't involved in the murders of Christopher Thomas Jr. and Anthony Williams. They've argued that the prosecution's entire theory about this being a premeditated murder staged to look like a drive-by shooting was built on insufficient evidence and flawed reasoning. Part of their strategy potentially involved pointing fingers at other possible suspects, which could have included Bortlen himself. But now that option has been completely eliminated from their playbook, with Bortlen accepting a deal that acknowledges his role as an accessory after the fact. That entire defense strategy has been blown to pieces. The prosecution can now point to Bortlen's plea as concrete proof that their version of events is accurate, that this was indeed a plan.
Before they get my ass out the paint, I want a lot of Texas
not
Tech.
some random act.
That's what I would ask for. Bitch.
It's also going to be proffer, Your Honor.
Proffer.
At a later time.
So is that part of the negotiated resolution?
It is.
Part of the negotiated resolution, you gotta give a proffer.
The proffer requirement represents the most dangerous aspect of this entire situation for Melly's future. Even though Bortlen's attorney continues to insist that the information provided cannot be used directly against Melly in court, anyone who understands how the criminal justice system actually operates knows that this explanation doesn't tell the complete story. Proffer information can be utilized in numerous ways to strengthen a prosecution's case, even when it cannot be presented directly as evidence during trial. For example, whatever details Bortlen provides can guide the prosecution's investigation strategy, help them identify new witnesses, locate additional evidence, or develop more effective questioning approaches for existing witnesses. It can also be used to contradict Melly's testimony if he chooses to take the stand in his own defense. Beyond the technical legal implications, the psychological impact of knowing that your former best friend and co-defendant has provided detailed information about your case to the very prosecutors trying to put you away for life cannot be measured or quantified. Reports indicate that Melly requested new lawyers following Bortlen's plea deal, suggesting that this development has significantly affected his confidence in his current legal representation and overall strategy.
If he
The
cut her off,
transformation that Bortlen has
she might get
undergone
sent to
since
prison
accepting his plea deal carries symbolic
it's a whole
weight
bunch of
that
shit going
extends
on.
beyond the practical aspects of prison life. When he was transferred to South
Witness
Florida
protection, you know
Reception
what I'm
Center
saying?
to
Witness
begin serving
tampering,
his
bitch.
sentence, Bortlen had his dreadlocks cut off and his head shaved completely clean, standard procedure in some correctional facilities. This dramatic physical change represents how much everything has shifted in this case. The person who once stood alongside Melly as part of the YNW collective is now literally and figuratively a completely different person. The broader implications for hip-hop culture and the criminal justice system's treatment of young black men are equally profound and troubling. This case represents part of a disturbing pattern where young artists from underserved communities find themselves trapped in a system that often seems designed to ensure their failure, whether through cooperation, incarceration, or elimination.
And again, he's not really trying to put on evidence so much to show that he's innocent versus he's trying to put on evidence to create, reasonable doubt. Because he doesn't have to show that he's innocent. He just has to show that the case that the state has is not strong enough to carry the reasonable doubt burden.
This case has also highlighted the controversial and problematic practice of using rap lyrics as evidence in criminal proceedings, which has particular relevance to hip-hop culture and artistic expression. Prosecutors have been attempting to admit lyrics from over 55 of Melly's songs.
He looking like OTL Jam, but OTL Jam was working double time. That nigga right there, bro.
Melly's breakthrough hit "Murder on My Mind," which was actually recorded and released before the murders occurred, has been especially scrutinized for its graphic and detailed depiction of violence. This practice of weaponizing rap lyrics in legal proceedings has been heavily criticized by legal scholars, civil rights advocates, and cultural critics, who argue that it unfairly prejudices juries against black artists and essentially criminalizes artistic expression.
It does, because
the fact that
he made that song, who knows
some aspects of
who was watching this nigga or really love that song, decided to put that shit on him.
Upcoming retrial.
You know what I'm saying?
Financial devastation caused by this prolonged legal battle is staggering when you consider the full scope of its impact. Melly has been held without bond in Broward County Jail since his arrest, which represents over 2,000 days in custody by mid-2025. The astronomical cost of his legal defense, combined with all the income he has lost from being unable to tour, record new music, or promote his existing catalog, represents millions of dollars in financial damage and lost opportunities. Meanwhile, the families of the victims continue their pursuit of justice and closure after more than 6 years of waiting. Christopher Thomas Sr., father of victim Christopher Thomas Jr., has stated publicly that he believed financial disputes played role in the murders. According to his account, the group was in the process of negotiating a deal to sell the YNW brand, with Sack Chaser supposed to receive $200,000 and Juvie $100,000. But arguments erupted between Sack Chaser and Melly over how the money would be distributed and controlled. The psychological toll on everyone involved in this case cannot be overlooked or minimized. Melly has spent over 6 years of his life locked up without a conviction, during what should have been the prime developmental years of his career and personal life. His mother has publicly criticized his former legal team for poor communication and inadequate representation, and the constant delays and legal maneuvering have created a situation where resolution always seems to be just beyond reach. For Bortlen, accepting this plea deal represented a calculated gamble that trading his reputation and immediate freedom for a shorter sentence was worth avoiding the risk of spending the rest of his natural life in prison. But the cost of this decision has been enormous and multifaceted. He has been permanently labeled as a snitch by much of the hip-hop community.
Yeah,
his whole music career is effectively over for the next decade, and his relationship with his former friend and collaborator
he ain't gonna be like no motherfucking Gangsta Williams.
This case raises
all y'all niggas
questions about how the criminal justice system handles high-profile cases involving young black men from disadvantaged communities. The extensive delays.
He's like, I'm not gonna take no murder charge, bitch.
Pressure applied to defendants to cooperate against co-defendants. All of these factors.
But you take the Eminems, the millions, bitch.
Designed to work against defendants like Melly and Bortlen from the very
designer,
looking ahead to Melly's
jewelry,
retrial, now scheduled for January 2027, it's abundantly
clear
that Bortlen's plea deal has fundamentally altered the landscape of the case in ways that may be impossible to overcome. The prosecution now has validation of their core theory, potentially detailed insider information about the events in question, and a powerful narrative of cooperation that they can leverage to pressure other potential witnesses. For Melly and his legal team, the road ahead has become significantly more challenging and treacherous. They will need to develop entirely new strategies to counter the prosecution's now strengthened case, while simultaneously dealing with the psychological and strategic impact of knowing that his former partner has provided detailed information to the same prosecutors who are trying to put him away for life. The hip-hop community continues to wrestle with the deeper implications of what this case represents for the culture as a whole. Is Bortlen a snitch who violated the most fundamental principles of street code, or is he a victim of a system that is deliberately designed to pit co-defendants against each other? Is Melly a talented artist who got caught up in circumstances beyond his control, or is he someone who needs to be held fully accountable for his alleged actions? These questions don't have simple or easy answers, but one thing remains absolutely certain. YNW Bortlen's plea deal has changed everything about this case, and its effects will continue to reverberate throughout the hip-hop community for years to come. Whether justice ultimately gets served for the victims, for Melly, for Bortlen, and for all the families affected by this tragedy remains an open question that will only be answered when this long legal saga finally reaches its conclusion. The story of YNW Melly and YNW Bortlen serves as a powerful cautionary tale about fame, friendship, loyalty, and the devastating consequences that can occur when all of these.
I wonder how long YNW Melly took to do that.
Justice system. As we
with the little hand thing he did.
Chapter in this ongoing legal.
I wonder how long it took that nigga to think of that. He's like, I'm really set this shit off.
Survival don't always and sometimes the price is higher than anyone could have ever imagined.
I don't know who the fuck Bortlen is, nigga
click
clown.
On the cards on your screen for more.
Tracc 100 bows though. I'll be back. So as you see, it's paperwork out here. If you go looking for it, they did a whole fucking basically like a damn deposition where he had to come in and speak on what happened. But what the crazy part is like if they would never had, if YNW Melly would never beat that case the first time, where the fuck they get all this information from? So they didn't have all this information the first time we watched it. So now they got it. They just magically pop up now. Ain't that crazy? It just goes to show you, nigga, like this shit be set up, nigga. A lot of shit, man. They is trying to get YNW Melly out the paint, most definitely, cause they got the death penalty on this nigga. You know what I'm saying? And his friend, he took the easy route out. He said, "I want to get that proffer and get a plea deal," which is fuck the YNW Melly. Then 100K Tracc, he been snitching. He gave up the phone. He did everything. He gave up the phone. He done snitched on it. He showed him where the gun and the missing gun and all that other stuff is. He snitched on to the police and shit. But he tried to keep it solid a little bit. But bro, this shit is cooked. It's like it's cooked, man. Free that nigga YNW Melly, and we out this bitch, man. Shit wild, man. You better watch who around you, hood. Outside Big Crip gang, outside.
Hey, Dad, you know dog, when we link up, dog, this shit be legendary. Even though this is instrumental, you the engineer on it, so Kodak everywhere.